The Eagles drafted Jalen Carter last night at number 9, and boy, that is a great pick considering the fact that he was considered by many to be maybe the best player in the draft. He certainly has one of the highest upsides. He's a great pass rusher. He's got off the field concerns, but even still, this pick right here is what makes the Philadelphia Eagles just so good. This is just amazing. You know, last year they had 3 first-round picks, traded one of them for A.J. Brown, and that move was pretty crucial to them making their Super Bowl for the first time since 2017. And this year, they had 2 first-round picks because the Saints, traded with them last year to move up to select Chris Olave. And it's just utterly amazing because usually when you see teams trade a first-round pick for a guy and make the Super Bowl, they generally don't do well afterward. Like, the Kansas City Chiefs are the example I'm going to use here, along with the Rams. Kansas City traded a first-round pick back in 2020 for Orlando Brown Jr., who of the Baltimore Ravens. They traded for him so that he could fill in at the left tackle spot, and it was a great trade as it helped Kansas City move their way back into the Super Bowl for his second straight appearance to face Tom Brady. Now, they got absolutely destroyed in the Super Bowl by Tom Brady, and because they didn't have a first-round pick that year, they couldn't select a high-impact player. And obviously, teams who want some of that Super Bowl magic sign players away from Kansas City. And even though they didn't make a Super Bowl, they didn't make the Super Bowl next year as Joe Burrow decided to, have lights out the second half against the Kansas City Chiefs, and the entire Bengals team pretty much did. And the Los Angeles Rams did the same. They traded 2 first-round picks for Matt Stafford. They won a Super Bowl. And now look at them. They're absolutely horrendous. I mean, they had the worst season of any team after winning a Super Bowl. Yet Philadelphia, it doesn't seem like that's going to happen to them. Yeah, they made the Super Bowl, and they lost it. And yes, they lost a lot of key players. I mean, Javon Hargrave is a huge loss. They were signed by the 49ers. There were a bunch of other losses. And obviously and they traded a first-round pick last year to get A.J. Brown. Yet this year, things are going to be different. Most teams will not have a first-round pick by this point. The Eagles have 2. I mean, that's just unbelievable. I mean, I remember when everyone thought Howie Roseman was a fool of a GM. I mean, just the fact that he failed on Carson Wentz after a little bit, them drafting Jalen Hurts, it seemed crazy. Why would you do that? And now he looks like an absolute genius. I mean, how on earth do the Eagles go from a team who makes the Super Bowl, loses it, and for most teams that would be horrible because a bunch of coaches left, and B, a bunch of players are going to leave because teams want the high players because there's a reason that they made the Super Bowl. Those players played well. And now, if most other teams in a situation, they would be dealt with a late draft pick. They'd be picking some other guy, or they just wouldn't have a first-round pick. Not the Eagles. They have 2. And they were able to replace Javon Hargrave with, Jalen Carter, who, if that pans out, is a great prospect. This is what makes the Eagles so good, and why I think they will dominate this year. The fact that they made the Super Bowl, they lost it. They lost players. They lost coaches. Yet they still have 2 first-round picks, and they still basically reloaded and potentially got even better somehow. That takes some skill. That is very much like Brady and Belichick in the Patriots dynasty, how they would lose tons of players and coaches and yet still be viable after a Super Bowl loss the very next season. That's the kind of stuff that separates you as a GM, as a head coach, as a team. Great move by Philly.